Reno and Las Vegas today. While the rest of the country was just cruising, the state of Nevada was booming, especially in the 1970s and 80s. And this man helped finance a lot of the growth. Banker extraordinaire Art Smith, at one point the youngest chief executive of a major bank in America. Art was raised in Sparks, Nevada. He began his banking career right after high school as a file clerk at the First National Bank in Sparks. After finishing just a year at the University of Nevada, Reno, Art left to join the Navy as a torpedo plane pilot. After the war, he moved to Las Vegas and returned to banking as a teller at the Bank of Nevada. That's where he met his future wife, Charlotte. She was the secretary to the president of the bank.
We started dating, and one of the interesting things to me was that about on our third date, he said to me, do you want to go out and fly? And I said, oh, sure, that sounds like fun. And so he rented a Stearman, and I got in this open cockpit, and he was buckling me in, and I had the goggles and the hat on, and he said to me, would you like to do some tricks? And I said, oh, yeah, that sounds like fun. And so we went up in the air, and he kind of pointed to me, lean over on this side, and I did, and then he snap rolled it, and then he went up and he stalled the engine.
Charlotte said that was the start of her exciting life with Art Smith. Married 52 years with 4 children, 13 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. Family was Art Smith's pride and joy. Everyone remembers him as a devoted family man with pride and passion for his children.
He was the best dad there you could ever dream of having. He could be in the middle of one of the most important meetings he's ever been in and get a call from family or from home, and he'd walk out. That's how important the family was to him. So yeah, he was just a great father and very good mentor.
Art Smith also had other passions. He was an outdoorsman who was always good at his game: hunting, fishing, and golf.
I can recall one time we went, my brother and I went to a golf tournament with him, and he goes, let's really win this thing. Well, we did. We put such a whooping on him that we never were invited back.
If you've been in Nevada long enough, you know about the rivalry between the northern part of the state and the southern part of the state. Art Smith had a love for all of Nevada.
There was a huge passion on his part to make sure that the state advanced collectively on that. One of the fun things that they did is his best friend, Jim Cashman Jr., and he organized and continued for some 25 years a party which was called the North-South Party. And Baron Hilton was kind enough to extend his ranch out in Yerington. It's a 1 million-acre ranch that he has out there. But Jim was in charge of the South and Dad was in charge of the North, and they would gather 20 to 30 of the key executives and people involved in the state, and they would all go out to Barron's. They would fly in their jets, or they would drive out and meet there for 3 or 4 hours. And it was once a year, and it was a party that had no agenda with it other than to just make sure that the North and the South.
He also was instrumental on the commissioning of the USS Nevada, the Trident submarine. So he kept that interest and his hands-on with military and what was happening here in Nevada.
And speaking of Jim Cashman, his son Tim remembers the two families being very close. He remembers how his father and Art Smith first met.
Art at the time was dating Charlotte Campbell, and Campbell and Cashman were very close in alphabetical order, and Charlotte and my dad were in grade school together, and they sat behind her, and so they had a tremendous relationship together as they grew up in Las Vegas. And Dad comes to find Charlotte going out with this newly arrived Art Smith in Las Vegas and trying to prove a point or establish a relationship the way it ought to be established right off. Walked up to Art sitting at the bar and tapped him on the shoulder and said, "You Art Smith?" And Art said, "Yeah," and he turned off and hit him right in the jaw and knocked him off the bar stool. They were very, very good, close friends.
Those who work with him remember him as being committed and smart. Chuck Lindsay came to Nevada Power during a time of expansion and worked with Art Smith often.
He was quite an individual. He was on the audit committee of Nevada Power Company. And my background was in accounting and auditing. I came to Nevada Power Company from an accounting firm in Chicago and in LA. And he always used to tell me in the meetings of the audit committee, who audits the auditors? And I think that was a dig at me more than anything else. But he turned out to be pretty forward-looking, because a lot of the accounting firms started having a lot of problems in the 1990s and the 2000s. So I think his question was more than just a rhetorical one, quite frankly.
Larry Tuntlin says Art Smith was his boss and his mentor.
He did so many things. It wasn't just about banking. I mean, he was a strong community advocate. I mean, he did so many things. He created a culture within our organization of caring about community, participating in community. He created the culture of volunteerism. The bank give money to things. So, I mean, there was just a lot of things that made up this person. And he actually had more interests and more hobbies and more things than any person I've ever met. He did more things. He just was a very energetic guy.
And I heard that he did well in all of them.
He did well in all of them. I always thought that he was a competitive person, but I realized later that he was a competitive person with himself. He was always trying to beat himself. You know, you would have liked him.
Fred Smith of the Las Vegas Review-Journal knew Art for almost 40 years. He says their shared last name was just one of the reasons he looked at him as a brother.
I think his legacy in the state of Nevada is he headed up the largest bank in the state of Nevada, by far the largest bank, during the greatest growth period of Nevada in the 70s and 80s. And I think his knowledge of the business, the gaming business, his support of the business in Nevada, that'll be his legacy.